You're approaching this, and like a lot of people in your position are going, these are a lot of coincidences. And it might be easier to look at these people who built the pyramids as a different group of people than the dynastic Egyptians that lived, 4,500 years ago.
Exactly what I think. I think what we're looking at, and it goes so much further than the pyramids to me, we're looking at the remnants of a lost civilization, and that left stuff. They might have left cultural knowledge, they might have left architecture and objects that were inherited by essentially a Mesolithic people that developed into a Bronze Age culture that we call the dynastic Egyptians. I think we have a good understanding of the dynastic Egyptian civilization. The tools that we found, the way they lived their life, that's the job of the Egyptologist. And I think we're right about those guys. I just don't think you can say they made everything. And in fact, they themselves don't say that. Like, their own history goes back 40-something thousand years.
So when do you think they're made?
I think pre-cataclysm, a lot of this stuff, and I'm not saying the pyramids as they are, you do have to kind of look through all this stuff with the lens of, I need to preface this, because it's like, there were thousands and thousands of years of renovation, reuse, rebuilding, adaptation, and then thousands of years of deconstruction, quarrying. Like, they've literally been ripping stone off these pyramids for the last couple thousand years and selling it. Yeah. Up until about 50, 60 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it's just that, you have to look at it through that lens, and the Egyptians spent many thousands of years working on this stuff and renovating it, using it for their own purposes. But I think a lot of this stuff goes back to before the cataclysm, like the Younger Dryas period, which we can talk more about.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, we see how much changes within 1,000 years. We see how much changes within 200 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like from the 1800s to now, a lot fucking changes. So it is very possible there could be a civilization that pops up, achieves immense success, gets wiped out, happens again, like almost on some Matrix shit.
Yeah, it's a cycle. I actually do think it's a long, convoluted thing to get to about why this stuff's important, is I do think there's a cycle almost of civilization and catastrophe or cataclysm.
I think it was Robert Schoch had the theory about the Sphinx with water erosion.
That's right.
And I think that kind of begins this conversation about Younger Dryas, right? Isn't that like...
it begins, it ties it back to an era that happens to coincide with, the Younger Dryas, and also, for that matter, Atlantis and Solon's and Plato's story of the destruction of Atlantis.
All of a sudden, the dates start lining up.
They really do. It's amazing.
So break this down. What is his theory? And
the great, we shouldn't forget the, rest in peace, John Anthony West.
Oh, yeah.
So he and Robert Schoch, he's the guy who invited Robert Schoch. John Anthony West looked at it at the Sphinx. So the Sphinx, it sits down at the end of there's a causeway connected to the middle pyramid complex. It's in this big enclosure. The Sphinx is not like a built thing. Like they carved down into the ground, and then they shaped it out of bedrock. It was originally what you would call a yardang. Yeah, it's a crazy name, but it's like this limestone outcropping that sticks up out of the ground. That was essentially its head. So they carved this big pit and they shaped this thing out of limestone, out of bedrock. So there's been a study done. So Robert Schoch, who's a geologist, I think the professor of geology at the Boston University, if I'm not wrong, went and looked at the erosion that is present on the enclosure walls. Now, the Sphinx itself has been repaired and worked on for, like, the Old Kingdom. There's records of... There's another thing. There's actually records of the Old Kingdom people fixing it when they supposedly built it, which is like, how does that make sense? The Romans did it. The New Kingdom guys did it. Our modern guys have done it. The British were working on it. So the Sphinx itself's hard to get those indicators, but the walls of the enclosure are untouched. So he went in and studied it, and he's looking at these vertical fissures and going, that's rainfall erosion. But it takes a tremendous amount of rain to create these vertical fissures in the limestone. And remember, we were talking about the Sahara Desert. It doesn't rain a whole lot. I've seen it happen, but you're talking about like a lot of heavy rain, thousands of years of it. Now, studies of the climate and the history of the region, we know that takes us back to
these types of fissures if you go to look at any of like the canyons in the United States of America, and I'm sure there's other places, but you see these cracks in the stone, and that's exactly how it was described to me. It was like, this is water erosion, sometimes heavy rain, or sometimes there'll be like water actually coming through the canyons, but these are these vertical cracks that exist in it.
Fissures.
Vertical fissures. And so it was really cool when it was pointed out on the Sphinx, and I'm like, well, where the would the water come from that would create these? Because it's intense amount of water that has to create.
It's rain, usually super heavy rain. It's a different, if that was like filled up with water, you'd get a different type of erosion. That's a whole other thing. There does seem to be some evidence for that in some other areas, which is like, holy crap, because the evidence for mega floods in Egypt is there as well. But this specifically is like rainfall erosion. So that's where he dates it back to, 10,000 to 12,000 sort of years ago, right in that period. Now, when he presented this, and by the way, if you take an image of those fishes and that limestone wall and you present it to pretty much any geologist without the context of saying, this is the Sphinx enclosure, they're going to take it's rainfall erosion. Like even the arguments to this day, because they don't want to admit it, they're really weak source arguments against Schock's theory. But when he went and presented it, he kind of got laughed. He thought he was doing something that's going to really advance our knowledge base, but he kind of got laughed out of the room by the Old Boys Network. In fact, it was Mark Lehner who's like, show me the potsherds. What is this date of like 10,000 BC? Now, the funny thing about that is then along comes Göbekli Tepe, because that's a site in Turkey, ancient site, discovered mid-90s by the German Archaeological Institute and Klaus Schmidt. He try not to say Klaus Schwab.
Don't say that.
Wrong Klaus. Although sadly Klaus Schmidt has passed away too. But that site's been carbon dated, and they know it was deliberately buried. It's bang on in that time period. It's not very far away. They built giant stone megaliths and pillars and stuff that 10, 20 tons. There was a culture doing that at that time. It's like,
the time
here's
is
your answer.
9,000 years ago.
Yeah,
for
9,000
right?
BC.
9,000 BC, so that is 11,000 years ago. Yeah.
Around that. And there's not only, but now it's Karahan Tepe and all these tepes. There might be dozens of sites now. They're even bigger than Göbekli.
So you know that there is an ancient civilization creating some cool megalithic shit around 11,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it just so happens, if you look at Egypt around 11,000 years ago, it was kind of wet.
Right, in that period, yes, there was rainfall erosion. But look, I also know that it wasn't just that period, and I know Schock has had to be pretty, political and cautious in his estimates.
Yep.
But I do know that he also does push it back further. Like when pressed, he can go back for 50, 60, 75,000 years old because. There's other correlations with the Sphinx, the age of Leo. This is where we
explain
get
that. So this is what I think is quite interesting. So let's just say we're operating in that 9, 10, 11,000 year range.
Yeah.
The Sphinx, as we see it now, is this lion that has a human's head.
Yes.
Right? But the head is too small for the body.
That's crazy.
And if you were a brilliant, what are they called? A stonemason?
Stone carver.
Stone carver like that. You're not going to make a mistake like that. If you're the same people that built the pyramids to exact proportions, you're not going to have this tiny little head and be like, oopsie, I guess we didn't figure that one out.
Yeah.
So what a common theme is that they came across the Sphinx and it had a lion's head.
Mm-hmm.
And then which pharaoh chopped it up and made the human one?
Yeah, we don't know. Well, it's attributed to Khafra, the owner of the Middle Pyramid, the son of Khufu, the Big Pyramid, 4th dynasty. That's generally what they say. You're absolutely right about the head. When you go there and look at it, the head's too small.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians, and they were master craftsmen, and they built they made a lot of statues, did a lot of work. Absolute masters of proportion. I don't think they would have got that wrong either.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing about that too. It's like this story about the erosion, because it goes back to the fishes on the wall in the enclosure. They say, oh, that's wind and sand erosion. This is what they say. And you're like, okay, well, if you give that thing 50 years, you know what happens, right? It fills up to its neck in sand or its chest in sand.
Yeah.
So how long?
Yeah, when we discovered the Sphinx, I don't know how long ago.
Oh, Napoleon ran across. We knew it was there. We've known about it for a long time.
But when
it was buried
discovered,
forever.
it was buried up to the head.
There's
so they
tons
didn't
of
even know
pictures.
it had the body.
It's like this head sticking out of the ground.
All the pyramids too. They've had to excavate to get to the bottom of these pyramids.
To get to the actual bottom layers.
Yeah. So I thought. So you're basically saying it was protected by sand. Well, it can't be eroded.
So that's the thing. How long does it take for this to be exposed? For it to be to get this wind and sand erosion on it?
Yeah.
And then you know what you don't see on the head? Wind and sand erosion. You don't see these vertical fissures. But that's the part of the Sphinx that's sticking up above the sand that would be hit by wind and sand all the time.
Yeah.
So what is this telling you? It's like, okay, so is this head just, it's the same type of limestone. It varies in layers.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is way fresher. The head's way fresher than the rest of it.
So let's assume they did carve a head out of the lion's head, right?
Yeah.
A human head out of a lion's head.
Yeah.
And let's assume the Sphinx, like the pyramids, had some sort of astronomical connection.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
It does. What does it line up with now?
Well, now I don't know. So it faces the sunrise, right? So it's well, I guess it's Pisces. It's where generally the way these goes in terms of the astronomical age or pointers. It's like the spring solstice or it's, it's one of those dates where it's
basically my question
astronomical
is,
significance.
what was it 10,000 years ago?
Age of Leo the Lion.
So you have...
Yeah. So it literally lines up as a marker.
It lines up 10,000 years ago with, we're talking about the age, like the sun rises in, now it's
Pisces.
Pisces, it's going to be Aquarius. And the constellation that was fucking rising on was Leo. It's got the body of the Leo.
Yeah.
It's got this tiny little shrunken head,
Yeah.
right? Which could have been carved out of a lion's head.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are making sense for this time.
Question about the head. Is the... So
are there chisel marks on it?
Are the chisel marks as precise on the Sphinx's head as they are in the rest of the pyramids?
Good question.
Because if they're imprecise, that would speak to the ancient Egyptians
less civilized or less
not having
advanced
the
civilization,
technology.
I don't think there's any of what I would call the advanced tool marks on the head of the Sphinx, no.
What about the
it's
unadvanced
limestone.
ones?
Yeah, are they like kind of jagged?
Yeah,
not
it's similar. It's very similar to a lot of the work and the quarrying that you see. It's because it's so big and it's relatively rough. It's huge, right? But it's also limestone, which is much easier to carve than granite.
Yeah.
But there's not. I mean, when you get into tool marks, maybe we can talk about that in a bit. But it's like these tubular drills and the actual saw cuts, the circular saw cuts. You see all that stuff in basalt, granite, diorite, the really hard stones. You don't see it as often in limestone. That was much easier to work. I do think it was very, very likely the dynastic Egyptians who recarved the head of the Sphinx. I 100%.
And dynastic Egyptians, for everybody listening, that's 4,500 years.
From the start, yeah, up until about 30 BC. So their civilization spanned a good 3,000 years thereabouts, like from 2,500, 3,000, 2,500 to 30 BC with Cleopatra.
Yeah.
With the snake.
Game over.
Yeah,
okay.
Game over.
Okay, now that takes us to the Younger Dryas.
Right.
So what the f is happening? Well, first, can you explain to people why an ice age isn't like the movie? I think the common perception for humans is when it's an ice age, everything in the world is completely frozen over. Nothing can live except a little squirrel with acorns.
It's called the Ice Age.
And it makes sense.
We're in the ice age. We're still in it. We're in an interglacial period in an ice age right now.
So if there's glaciers...
It's 53 degrees in New York while we're filming this.
Yeah.
Ice age is
actually
fire.
nice. Yeah. Ice ages are great. Well, yeah, it's not snowball Earth. It's not this planet snowball idea. Millions and millions of years ago, there may have been periods like that. But no, Ice Age and the glacial maximum refers to when we had the Laurentide, the Cordilleran, and the European glaciers, these 2 miles of ice that were sitting up on top of the northern hemisphere of the planet. It was generally colder, but there were plenty of temperate zones and even tropical zones along the equator.
So essentially it's a percentage of glacial ice
that
qualifies a time period to be an ice age.
They generally go on the extent of the glaciers. And so we can see from glacial till and the moraines and all of these geological features about how far the glaciers extended. We would have been buried under a couple of miles of ice right here back in that period. But it's also, the sea levels were 400 feet lower because all that water's up on the land now, and all that melts, sea levels rise, all that stuff. And so that abruptly ended. And so we've known, it's kind of interesting, it's all work that's happened in the last couple decades, really, that has really advanced our understanding of what occurred at the end of that last glacial maximum. Because it was violent. That's the thing. It turns out it was tremendously violent.
Again, so we understand this. The Younger Dryas is the Ice Age, or is the violent time?
The Younger Dryas is essentially the boundary between what we would call the Pleistocene, which was the glacial, the end of the, we would generally call it the Ice Age, but that's the glacial maximum, and the Holocene, which is the era we're in now. This nice warm weather that's been pretty stable for 10,000 years or so. That's where we live. It's the reason.
So this is the
transition. It's the reason why we've got a civilization.
Gotcha.
The Younger Dryas is the transition point between that, and it gets crazy wacky in terms of. So
something happened 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, 12,800 years ago. It's a period between 12,800 years ago and 11,600 years ago, and if you go back, it's this tumultuous time. So we kind of have learnt this from ice core data. So we go and drill down in Antarctica and Greenland, and we drill down because. Right down into the ice, and you extract these big tubes of ice because every year, the snowfall gets laid down on there and it's compacted, and you can do analysis on it and look at things like oxygen isotopes and determine temperature and accumulation of snow and all these different things about the past.
So a similar thing almost like with trees and rings.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're doing that with ice.
With ice, and you can go back hundreds of thousands of years. So what we've learned is that something happened. We're coming out of this more or less warm, gentle, we're warming up from this, glacial maximum. But then all of a sudden it just goes boom down to these severe cold for like, 800 years, and then it's boom, jacked back up again by another event, and then it's this gentle warming thing that gets us up to more or less the temperature we have now. But there's this really violent period in between called the Younger Dryas. You go back further, there's ups and downs as well, but the other thing that correlates to the Younger Dryas is this extinction event. We've known about that forever, right? We've dug up mammoth bones and, saber-toothed tigers and American lions and short-faced bears, like all these giant animals. It's not the dinosaurs, but they were here.
Animals that exist now.
Animals that were here, but only some 12 to 13,000 years ago. So it's the megafauna extinction. Think about the mammoths. Like some people get
megafauna for the people.
Well, megafauna is like any mammal or large animal with a body weight, I think, over like 40 kilograms, so 80 pounds. Yeah,
Humans?
Woolly mammoth. We are megafauna. Yeah.
Oh, us too.
Me in particular.
100 pounds, 40 kilograms.
Wow,
100 pounds.
wow.
Definitely megafauna. So 80 pounds-ish, 90 pounds, something like that. So, and the crazy thing is, as many species of megafauna that there are alive today, that's basically how many went extinct in a very short period of time. Also in that Younger Dryas period, like 11,600 to 12,800.
So Younger Dryas is not the event, it's the time period during after the event before things start to normalize.
Yeah, so it's this period of time where it's this tumultuous time. We've got these crazy swings in temperatures. We've got these massive sea level, like these meltwater pulses where the sea level rises tremendously, very violently, and we've got an extinction event now. All tied into this one period from ice core samples, and now, since 2007, there's more than 160 papers that have also shown there was a cosmic impact at that time. So digging in that layer, so in that same layer in the dirt, you dig down in the strata layers, you can date all that stuff, where those megafauna bones are, a lot of the extinction bones at that same layer, that's where we find what you call impact proxies, so shock synthesized nanodiamonds.
What does that mean?
So it's basically the impact, and it's the byproducts of extreme heat and pressure, and like soot layers and carbon and like all of these different indicators of basically cosmic impacts, like these gigantic explosions.
So this is what the Carolina Bays thing is?
Well, the Carolina Bays may or may not. It seems like it ties into this event, but no.
Let's not go there then.
Yeah, it's like a fallout. It's almost like splash damage. It's Carolina Bays is just a byproduct almost of a big cosmic impact. This is like the same. This is like just unimaginably violent events. These cosmic, either it's airbursts or it's huge impacts of stuff that's like a mile, 2 mile wide, coming in at 40,000 kilometers a second kind of thing. And just pounding into the earth, and then it creates these tellers, these microscopic telltale signatures like magnetic carbon spherules, shock synthesized nanodiamonds. There's a whole list of them. There's all these a lot of these scientific papers that have now figured that out.
Evidence of impact.
They call it impact proxies. Yeah, so it's the thing we don't quite have are craters. Now that's stuff that Randall is working on, but you've got to also imagine some of these impacts. They might not have all been impacts. They might have been airbursts. What is an
airburst? Sorry.
So it's where it blows up before it hits the ground.
It's kind of what we see now with like, shooting stars and stuff like that?
Yeah, there was a big one in Tunguska in Siberia.
Yeah, that's the Russian one.
Yeah, the Russian one.
But isn't that impact though?
It was an airburst. It was an airburst.
But
I thought it flattened a giant area. It was only a tiny little rock compared to what we would.
So it flattened an area despite it being an airburst?
Oh yeah, think of like a big bomb going off. It's just a shockwave comes down and just goes.
Oh, maybe
Massive
we can even
problems.
get a picture up of that to show it because it still hasn't even recovered.
Yeah, in Siberia, right. Well, there's pictures of all these just trees knocked down by matchsticks, but like acres and acres of it. Yeah, Tunguska.
So some people go, well, where are the craters if there's this massive impact? And what you're saying is that you don't need a crater in order for the impact to have extreme damage.
Well, that's right. So you might have some remnant. It could have been an airburst. A lot of people mistake the research. The latest research really shows it was a series of impacts. It was or airburst. It wasn't just like one big one. There was a whole range of them.
Yep.
It's like an asteroid belt almost.
It was actually a disintegrating comet. This is a funny thing. So it's a comet Encke. Now this came into our solar system a long time ago. It's been broken up. There's actually it's formed what's a meteor stream. It runs around the sun and loops out. And we cross through it twice a year. It's the Taurid meteor stream. I think it's like June and October. So we sort of cross over it twice, right?
I think Graham talked about it in his series.
He does. And it's like, we don't know if there's large chunks still in this. Like we do run into this same period, and there's a lot related to that time period in October. The Chicago fires, I think it's like 18 or 19 something. The
Great Chicago Fire?
The Great Chicago Fire
was started by a comet?
It may have been an airburst, or it might have been a remnant, or even a gas bubble that came in from something. Because it also on the same day you had the Peshtigo forest fire, which was like I think in southern Canada or somewhere like that. It's one of the craziest stories you'll ever hear, because this huge area in the same time frame, there's massive fire spread like it's unimaginable conflagration, as well as what happened in Chicago, all in that same time period, the same time period when Tunguska hit, that same time of year when we're crossing this meteor stream. So it's like, this is not always these little shooting stars aren't always the friendliest of things. I think a lot of that ties back to this meteor stream and potentially this this
event. Blew my mind a little bit when I was watching Graham's piece, because I think my perception is probably similar to most people, which is like there's been a couple comets that hit the Earth, like 1 or 2 every 65 million years, and then it's done. And then Mark showed me this picture of all the comets that have hit the Earth, right? He just sends me the picture. He goes, hey, look at this. And then I look and I go, wow, that's a lot of comets. And then on the bottom of the picture goes, since 1994.
Yeah.
I thought this was all that ever hit it. So, and I think it was, I don't know if it was you, but I know Rogan was messaging me about this too. Yeah, here's a picture.
1994 to 2013.
Just to 2013.
What, 19 years?
That's crazy. So, and then Rogan said this as well to me. He's like, yeah, we're in a shooting gallery. And
cosmic shooting gallery.
And it's better we don't think about things like this, by the way.
True.
It's better we assume it's just a big one hits and then like, okay, that's why there's that little hole near Cancun, and then the dinosaurs go away and then we're back to normal.
Yeah.
It's better for the average person, because I don't recycle as it is now. But if you told me it's possible that next year we're going to get hit by some big shit, I'm not recycling ever. I'm not going to do a single good thing for the environment.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, these political arguments we have, like, how many genders are there? Have a million. Who gives a f?
Yeah, it's over.
We're going to die in 4 days anyway.
Baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is happening between 12 and
11,006.
11,000 years ago.
So that's the Younger Dryas period, right? So, and that's the true key to me that unlocks the story of civilization, because if that event happened today to us, our civilization is gone. If we survive it, we will be knocked back to hunter-gatherers, and in a generation or two, we'll be sitting around the campfire telling ghost stories about plasma TVs and dancing around with black shiny rocks, trying to turn it on and say, well, this thing will give you answer to anything and you can talk to someone on the other, it's magic.
Can you paint that picture a little bit? Like if Younger Dryas happens today, what happens geopolitically? Like does a wave come in?
The entire world.
It depends where it lands, what happens. I mean, if you're anywhere near the actual impact site or the areas, I mean, you're just gone.
Every building
gone. Done. I mean, if you're anywhere near it, just instantly disintegrated.
The entire planet?
Not well, if it's big enough. I mean, that's the problem, is that you go back far enough in these extinction events. I mean, some of them have eliminated like 99.9% of Earth, of life on the planet. If that happens, it's game over. Like, we're back to microbes and let's start again. But it's, we're back to rats. It's whatever the hell crawls out of the pond the next time, and give it a billion years and see where we end up. But it's, no, if something mediums or relatively small, Younger Dryas, I mean, that's an extinction event, right? It knocked humans around, knocked off half of the big animals on the planet at the time, all of the woolly mammoths. I mean, there's literally anything near that event. We see this in some of the bones of these mammoth graves, right? It's absolutely crazy. Think about an elephant's femur, how much force it takes to break the femur of an elephant. There's literally... These elephants had their feet in mud and their leg bones are just snapped clean off, and there's hip bones up near their heads and they're just jumbled up. There's whole caves.
I get what you're saying. You're basically looking at this skeleton, and you've never seen an elephant skeleton being absolutely destroyed like this.
Destroyed.
And there isn't an animal big enough that's alive that's going to do it. It's not like there's some King Kong that's running around snapping elephant legs, right?
Yeah, at the ankle.
Has to be, they're either falling off a cliff.
Well, their feet are in the ground. Like, there's literally, they're stuck, so their feet are still in this mud, and then their bones are snapped off and they're all jumbled up. I mean, there's...
Oh, so they're standing there, and then they just got smacked.
Like this shockwave hits them. Yeah. In other places, there's all these megafaunas, mixed up bears and tigers and cats and trees, and just this, like, forest just all smashed up and jumbled together. They found finds like that. Like a landslide, but it's much more violent. Like, it's essentially, I think what you're looking at is these things were hit by a shockwave as a result of this. Now, painting the picture, if it hits anywhere near an ocean, or if it lands in an ocean. Tsunamis. So you have these, giant tsunamis moving at the speed of sound that might be half a mile high or whatever. That's just going to water destroys everything, knocks out all the cities. You probably have, forget electricity and grids and stuff. I actually think this is why some governments around the world are making these giant underground bases, which may have also been what happened in the past. Because
that's what happened in Turkey, right?
Well, Derinkuyu, yeah, but also Egypt. There's evidence for this all over the world, and there's all sorts of strange stories.
Colorado, the airport.
Yeah, Colorado, the airport, the Cheyenne Mountain up there in Colorado. That's like where NORAD is and everything. There's giant underground bunkers. You can go. I saw a TikTok of a guy driving a big ass truck, and you can just huge cabins.
And this isn't even conspiracy. This is known, right? It's like a doomsday bunker.
Well, I don't know if you say doomsday, but yeah, it's an underground bunker that's as big as, or twice as big as the airport or whatever.
Yeah. And they can hold 4,000 people or something like that.
Yeah,
this is massive. End of civilization shit.
Well, the government's thinking about it. I saw an RFP. I know a guy who knows a guy who is involved in some government stuff. They put out an RFP.
What does that mean?
Like a request for proposal for tech companies to go, we need a drone system. The Prometheus movie?
Yep.
Where they throw it up in the air and it runs off and maps these underground environments. They wanted that type of system that can work without GPS because they're interested in fighting wars in underground cities.
Because they think that
may be what happened, where it might go in the future, so they're trying to prepare
crazy
for
they're thinking about war even after a mass extinction event.
That's us, man.
If there's an extinction level event, there's going to be violence followed very quickly.
Yeah,
that's the first time it survives.
Yeah.
You would love a series about this.
It depends where you are on the planet and if how your luck holds wherever you are.
What were you saying about the Turkey thing or?
Derinkuyu?
Yeah.
Well, so there's evidence for underground cities, ancient underground cities as well.
Yeah, all over.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely places like Cappadocia and Derinkuyu in Turkey, they could have held hundreds of thousands of people. Have you seen
any of these?
No.
This is incredible. Yeah. So they basically carve cities out underground with access to air and water. There's underground rivers. So they knew where the river was and the water line was. So you have everything you need, but
I think that speaks to being very advanced.
100%.
Underground city, and we know where the water is, how to access the water.
Mm-hmm. And how many people could they hold?
Well, Derinkuyu, I'm pretty sure was the figures. I think that's only a tiny part of it. I think it could have been 100. I've heard up to hundreds of thousands of people. Certainly more than 50,000 people. But same thing in Egypt, and there's rumours of this stuff all over the place. There's giant underground networks of tunnels underneath Saqqara, I think underneath Giza, all over Egypt.
Now, is it possible that they're using this during the time where there's tons of comet impact?
I think that's probably why. It speaks to someone who they may have known it was coming. You've got these indicators, if the Sphinx is marking the age of Leo, and you've got these alignments. They're pointing at that for a reason, because that time period is also that of cataclysm, right? It's, at least in the last precessional cycle, the last 26,000 year period, it kind of lines up to it. And Göbekli Tepe, there's a lot of research done into that side as well. It may be an astronomical calendar and a historical one, but it seems to point at this time. It's like they're transmitting a message down through time. It's possible. That's telling us, look at this time, this time means something. This was bad, figure it out. And if they knew it was coming, maybe they were preparing these things as, the doomsday bunkers, a place you could survive until the outside was nice enough to come back out and go, holy shit.
What's the stone that has the different constellations on it in Göbekli Tepe? Graham talked about in the...
it's like Pillar 13 or Pillar
7 or something like
5
that.
or whatever. Yeah, I'm not 100%.
But basically has this maybe he might be taking liberties on it, but they have an organization of the constellations that happens to... The last time the constellations were organized in that manner, there was a global cataclysm.
Right.
So it's they're not usually organized like that, but when they are... This is when it was basically go time.
Yeah.
And it lines up with the Younger Dryas.
And it's okay. And where do they think Younger Dryas did hit, and what do they think the damage was?
So I think it was a northern hemisphere impact. I think you're mostly looking at ice impacts onto the what was the Laurentide and Caldera ice sheets covered most of North America and Canada. I actually think that some of the Great Lakes region, Randall's doing a lot of really good research into what could be actual impact formations in the geology of the northern United States and Canada today. Because the other thing is we know that's where a lot of the meltwater from these glaciers came out, right? This is the evidence for... Have you guys ever been up to the Scablands, eastern Washington State?
No,
you know about this place?
I've seen the videos. It's crazy.
Amazing. These giant coulees. You're talking one of these coulees, just one of several of them.
What's a coulee?
A coulee is like a canyon but with no water.
Yeah.
just like this giant, like think of like the Grand Canyon, but much super wide, 1,000-foot high or 800-foot high.
It's also a
walls.
racist term for Indians in South Africa. So I got a little bit uncomfortable when you kept saying it. But continue. Sorry.
It's with a U in it.
Okay. All right. Got it.
But it's it's the channeled scablands, and it's basically the outwash of this water, this tremendous floods. We know now that this all happened at the end of the Ice Age, but it completely destroyed that environment. It carved up, it ripped through this land. You're talking about a single one of these channels, and there were multiple of them. It's like 50, 100 times the volume of all the rivers on the Earth at once.
Oh wow!
Just almost like a billion cubic feet per minute at where it all gathered up. It's just the catastrophic flood in this. It just tore through it. The flood. So where it's carved that channel, the actual water was probably 300-400 feet above that, and it just ripped through here.
All the national parks in the United States of America are just remnants from the latest cataclysm.
America.
Cataclysms make some cool shit.
They do.
Like this is stunning. Yeah. And if you go down to where was I in like southern Utah and stuff like that, you see these even they're not cataclysms, but
Bryce
when you
Canyon
see exactly like the
Zion.
damage from the water damage from canyons creates some like stunningly beautiful.
And why can't it just be like gentle erosion over millions of years?
Well, that was the argument for a long time until you had guys like J. Harlan Bretz was a catastrophist. And then Randall Carlson's doing a lot of good work in this space. And now this, at least up here in the Channel Scablands, they have swung around. So it's a long story. It comes back to religion, funnily enough, because the story of religion was always catastrophism, right? What's the story in the Bible? It's Noah's flood. It's the Great Flood, right? So that was always where we got our answers from. So you have the age of enlightenment, the age of reason starts, science has its beginnings, geology emerges as a fledgling science. And for something like 60, 70 years, a stated goal of geology was to get as far away from the catastrophism of religion as they could. So think of it as like a massive overcorrection. They went out there and said, you go out and you have to explain every feature we see on the landscape with gradualism or uniformitarianism, which is the gentle, slow, erosive processes that we see in place today, like the stream slowly eroding stuff, hills and shapes taking form. So that's what ends up in all the textbooks. And some stuff is still explained like that, and it's frankly nonsense. So, but now we're sort of coming back in the other direction and going, you know what? Some of these landscapes and features are the result of catastrophic flooding. And at least up here in Washington State, they're like, yes, there's still arguments going on. Some people think it's like 50, 60 floods. Randall thinks it was 1 or 2. I think Randall's right. He says he has significant evidence for it. There's all sorts of problems with like how ice dams reform. It's kind of a convoluted, long story. But this does align, this model, this environment aligns with like the meltwater pulses. So everything wraps up and shows that in that period, that Younger Dryas period, when we had all this ice on land that it all ended up in the ocean in a big bloody hurry. It's like, you need an external source of energy for that. If you took that lump of ice that was on top of North America and you plopped it down in the warmest waters at the time, say somewhere around Indonesia, it'd take 30,000 years to melt.
Yeah,
it would still be here. But it melted in an incredibly short period of time. So you need this source of energy. Turns out, then you combine that with all of the strata work. So it's like the macro scale and the micro scale. The macro scale, we've got these catastrophic landscapes, the work of Randall Carlson. The micro scale, we've got all the work of the Comet Research Group, 160 plus peer-reviewed papers looking at the science. So we've narrowed in, we're like, God damn, this was a violent period. It probably knocked our species. Graham says we're a species with amnesia for this very reason. It's a great analogy. So you turn all of this around. I think that's why catastrophism, the Younger Dryas, is the key that unlocks this longer story of civilization and human history, because now you've got all this other evidence, these stories that are embedded in religions and origin stories and cultures that speak of earlier times. Every culture out there is like, hey, our ancestors went through either flood or fire. It knocked them down. They had to rebuild. It's like, is this all bullshit?
Yeah, there's a flood myth in Mayan mythology. There's a flood myth in like Christian. I'm sure there's Indian. I mean, everyone. Yeah. But and this makes sense if these comets were hitting more regularly and then you were experiencing these floods.
I think some of these tales include basic eyewitness accounts of these floods. If you go to the other vectors directory on there, you can pull up a few. The Mahabharata literally talks about swarms of meteors coming out of the sky. Revelation 8 and 9.
What's the Mahabharata?
It's Mahabharata, this Indian Hindu story.
Oh, okay.
Hindu epic, yeah.
Yeah, go to other vectors in there.
Oh, in this one?
Yeah. That's the third one down, yep.
And I guess my question is, if there's a gap between Hinduism's 4,000 years old, the Younger Dryas period is as many as what, 12,000 BC? So that's
No,
14,000 years old.
12,000 BC? No, just 12,000 years
12,000 years,
12,000 years ago, sorry.
12,000.
So there's that 8,000 year gap. How does that story hold up for 8,000 years? If theoretically we went back to, and I'm not saying this to pick at you, I'm just curious, and I'm sure you've thought this through. If we went theoretically back to a Stone Age, how did we maintain these eyewitness accounts for 8,000 years?
Well, I think they get deified, they get put into stories. That's like the oral tradition, that's how we transmit the data down through time. Not only, I think, are there eyewitness accounts and stuff like this, I mean, Revelation 8, Mahabharata, all of these stories, that I think it's an oral tradition. And there's also evidence in all of these stories for celestial knowledge, for that same processional numerology I talked about. There's a whole book called Hamlet's Mill. It's a complicated book, but they essentially showed in that from all these cultures all around the world, there seems to be that same processional numerology, these 72s, this stuff that correlates to the cycles of the heavens and the cosmic world, is also encoded in these tales, in some cases in civilizations where we know they had no clue about this. All of it points to like a common ancestor, a common progenitor of this story.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, like, to be fair, some of these things, the biblical flood, the flood of Moses, for example, might have been related to an event that happened called Burkle Crater, which was about 5,000, I think it was 5,000 BC or 5,000 years ago. There may be smaller events that have generated floods. Like, this isn't the only impact. Like, Burkle Crater was it would have flooded the Middle East right around the right sort of time. It landed in the Indian Ocean. 800-foot tsunamis hit Madagascar and the coast of Western Australia.
Yeah, I probably fucked India up too.
Yeah, it would have washed up north, Yeah. So I think that a lot of this stuff gets transmitted down through time with oral traditions, and it gets put into these stories and characters and deified because that's how we retain that data and transmit it down through time.